Today, we're going to read about who is this guy? What's the monkey name? Curious George. So we're going to be reading about Curious George discovers the seasons. There's fall, there's winter, there's summer, and what else? Spring. So again, this is the front of the book, and this is the back. George was a good monkey and always very curious. Do you want to hear about the time George's curiosity helped him learn all about the seasons? Me too. It all started on a cold winter day. The leaves were gone and the grass was brown, but there wasn't a snowflake in sight. George had to bundle up in his winter coat, but when he got outside, he wasn't sure what to do. There were no fallen leaves to play in. There were no birds to watch. George had toys for warm days and toys for snowy days, but nothing for just plain cold days. So George is outside. He doesn't know what to do. Now he's looking. What do you think George should do? Let's find out. George had an idea. He could visit the bunnies. But when he went next door, the bunnies weren't in their hutch. He found his friend Bill and the bunnies inside. I'm going to bring them for you to my grandmother's house for the winter, George, Bill told him. It's just too cold to keep the bunnies outside in the house. George was disappointed. He was sad. Can you show me a sad face? This is my sad face. He was sad to see the bunnies go. Then Bill asked him to do a special job. While I'm away, will you feed the bunnies and squirrel for me? He asked. There aren't a lot of nuts and seeds around in the winter, so it's an important job. George was very happy to help. George fed Jumpy, but that took only a minute. He wasn't sure what to do after that. He looked around his yard and thought about summer. He missed his pool and blowing bubbles. Everything fun seemed to happen in the spring, summer, or fall. What is George doing? He's feeding the squirrels the nuts. George decided he wasn't going to let winter ruin his fun. It might not actually be summer, but he could still do summertime things. What do we do in the summertime? We go to the pool, we go to the beach, we play in the sand. Let's see what George is going to do. George got to the house and filled his little pool with water. But when he jumped in, the water was... What do you think happened to the water? Was it cold or was it hot? The water was cold because it's winter time. George was so cold and he got out of the pool. Brrr. He ran into the house. Soak your feet in warm water to get rid of the chill, the man with the yellow hat said. The warm bath was a lot nicer than the cold pool. George felt much better. So this is George filling up the pool with water. But he cannot sit in the water because it's too cold. So he went inside and sat in the warm water, and he felt good. The next day, it was even colder. George bundled into his coat and scarf when he went out to play. He wanted to enjoy being outside in the winter as much as he would be in the other season. He sat by his pool to relax. Then George blew some bubbles for Jumpy. But when Jumpy tried to pop a bubble, they discovered that it had frozen. Bubbles could freeze? He thought. George felt like he was freezing too. So, what is George doing right now? He's relaxing. He has his shades on, he has his scarf on, and his jacket, and he has his cup. He's relaxing under the umbrella. And then, what is he doing? What did he do next? George blew some bubbles. And what happened to the bubbles? It froze. Do you know why? Because it was too cold. George went inside to warm up and drink some hot cocoa. I love some hot cocoa. Yummy. He was puzzled. How could a monkey have any fun outside when everything is freezing? Suddenly, George had an idea. He had another idea. Let's see what it is. He could use frozen things to make a game. He filled a balloon and several cartons from the recycling bin with water. So this is George thinking. Let's see what he said. How could a monkey have fun outside when everything is freezing? So he thought, how can it be? And then he had an idea, another idea again. What did he decide to do? He decided to fill the cartons with water. Uh-oh, another water again. How many cartons do you see? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 cartons. Let's see what happens to the water. Then he brought them inside so he could freeze in the cold air. So they could freeze in the cold air. George didn't notice when Jumpy accidentally spilled some seeds and nuts into the carton of water. The next morning was the coldest day yet. It got colder. Whew. George had to wear a hat, a scarf, and a coat to stay warm. He didn't mind though. He went to check on the balloon and cartons of water. He left outside. They were frozen solid. The water turned into a rock. It froze into ice. They were frozen solid. George couldn't wait to set them up for a game of icy winter bowling. Look at that ice. What shape is that ice? It's a circle, round and round, all the way to town. When he took the ice from the cartons, he saw some of Jumpy's seeds and nuts frozen inside each block. Oh well, George tried to bowl anyway. Jumpy chased, so this is Jumpy, the squirrel. Jumpy chased the blocks and tried to break his breakfast out of the ice. It wasn't ice bowling, but it was fun. So Jumpy's trying to get the nuts out so he can eat it. Besides, George knew he could try his new bowling invention again the next day. He filled the curtains and balloon with water once more and left them outside. In the morning, George bundled up. "You are not going to need that hat and scarf today, George," his friend said. George went outside. It felt more like spring or fall than winter. George checked on his curtains and balloon, hoping for another round of ice bowling, but the water hadn't turned to ice. It was too warm for it to freeze. Oh, see, the water didn't turn to ice because it was too warm. It was warm outside. The weather was very confusing. Wasn't it supposed to be cold in the winter and warmer in the other seasons? He thought. George went back into the house. So this is George thinking again. But later that day, something amazing happened. George thought he saw something outside the window. When he went to look, it was... What's happening? It's snowing. George thought that if it was cold enough to snow, it might be cold enough for water to freeze. And cold enough to make a new ice bowl, and said, maybe the cold could be fun after all. George realized that winter, spring, summer, and fall were all great in their own way. Right now, he had winter toys to play with and a whole chilly season to enjoy. This is George and Jumpy playing with the ice blocks. I see some shapes here. What shape is this? Can you tell mommy or daddy what shape it is? And what shape is this? Ooh, look at this other shape right here. A rectangle. Good job. The end. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.